Hello everyone, welcome to eTech Facebook Live Fridays. I'm Tech Bob, and in today's session I will be reviewing some tips that we recommend using during iPhone repairs to help avoid the most common damages that we see during the repair process. Some of these also apply to other brands of phones such as Samsung and iPad, but they definitely apply to iPhone today. So starting off with the first tip, I'm going to be showing you how to remove the home button and the front sensor flex on an iPhone. I have an iPhone 10 screen and an iPhone 7 screen here today. I'm showing you this because we see a lot of damage from technicians during this repair, mainly due to the tackiness or the stickiness of the adhesive that comes from the manufacturer, especially if these components have never been removed before. They are on there pretty tight. So the couple things I'm going to recommend to use to remove this and help avoid the issue, it's not really a secret anymore because people have been doing this for a while, but if you didn't know, heat and alcohol are probably the biggest things that can help here. And when I say alcohol, I don't mean the kind you're probably thinking. I mean the purest kind. It's 91 or 90% or pure isopropyl or denatured alcohol. This stuff really breaks down adhesive and makes it easier for these cables to separate. So real quick, I'm going to turn on an overlay that shows the items I will be using in today's video. So starting off, I have Spudger, alcohol dispenser, squeeze bottle with needle, the heating pad, and then I have a couple parts there at the bottom that I'm going to be showing towards the end of this video. So I'm going to turn that off just so it's not in the way, but I'll leave it up a couple seconds just so everyone can see. Take it off now. So I'm going to start with the iPhone 7 actually, because it seems to me that we've seen more of these damage than anything else. So as I mentioned, the couple tools we're going to use here, we have our heating pad over here off to the side, so I can get it a little more in view. This is the CPB mini heating station. This one is the perfect size for anything phone related because it's not that big. We actually recommend using it at 75 degrees Celsius. We'll let that heat up a little bit. While I'm doing that, we do need to disconnect our home button, which is the first step, obviously, before we go and try to remove it completely. So I'm going to take the flat end of my spudger, get in here on the top side, gently twist over to the right to disconnect. Be careful here because you don't want to tear the cable. And while that's heating up, another thing I'm going to mention here, I had a bunch of spudgers out here today just to kind of show what we're working with. So your ideal are the two in the middle. I don't know if you can see that, but you see how the one on the left looks like someone took a bite out of it? This is a heavily used spudger. This one's seen some love. So I don't recommend using one that's worn down like this or missing pieces to do something as delicate as removing a home button flex or a front sensor flex on an iPhone 10. This spudger, you can probably use it for some of the more bulky things to do during repair, but if not, I would retire this. I think we sell a 4-pack for about $2-3. So I would always have a good spudger. When I was doing trainings for a while there, I always recommended to have one spudger in your toolkit that's known as like the sensitive task spudger. So something like removing home buttons or disconnecting really fine cables, because you don't want to use something that's dull. This other green one right here is kind of seen its fair share too. It's not as bad as that other black one, but this one I would only use to like open a device, maybe to slide between some clips, but I would also not use it to do my home button here. So I'm gonna grab one of these here today. It's very thin, flat. The edge of it is still very precise. So that's what we're gonna wanna do so we don't damage this home button. So as I was talking, it looks like it's heated up enough. It's about 75 degrees there. I'm gonna put it on the heating pad. As far as heating here, we recommend about 2 to 5 minutes. You don't have to really go over that because it's not gonna cause any issues. I'm then going to, while that's happening, I'm gonna take my alcohol squeeze bottle. I'm actually gonna put a little bit of alcohol around the flex here. Now, I'm doing it this way to kind of speed up the process in the video so we can cover everything quickly today, but I'd recommend heating and then using the alcohol just because the heat's gonna probably help dry up that alcohol, which you don't want. So this is getting pretty hot here. I mean, I am speeding it up again, so pretend we fast forward it 5 minutes. This should still be enough. It's gonna be pretty hot to the touch. That's when you know it's ready to go. So I'm gonna slide that over. I'm gonna try to do this one step, get some more alcohol in there. And again, just around the flex cables that we're going for. I'm gonna take the flat end of my spudger. I'm gonna work it carefully. Notice my spudger is as flat to the screen as it can be, and I'm carefully working my way over. And I don't know if the camera did that justice, but this came off the cable part came off at least very easily. This part you just poke through so it falls out, and there you go, home button out. This is, like I mentioned, one of the more common damages we see in something that's really avoidable by just using some heat and some alcohol. It'll save you that home button replacement or device replacement, even if the customer is not happy without the device with Touch ID. So definitely do this to avoid that issue. And then quickly, I'm going to show the same thing on the iPhone 10 side. Fortunately, couldn't find a screen where this one hadn't been removed before in time, but same process. So right here, I have my front sensor flex, which again, if this is damaged, you permanently lose Face ID. So to avoid that, we would do the same thing. Put it on our heating pad, heating. Now that this one's been heated, which again, it's been removed, you can take a little bit of alcohol at the bottom here. I wouldn't use a whole lot on this one because you do have some sensors going on, proximity, ambient light, microphone. But same thing, you're gonna wanna work your way underneath with a fine tip spudger carefully. And then typically the last thing that'll come up is this ambient light sensor. Once all those are removed, you have your cable safely off. So again, same general process. The only secret that we're kind of uncovering here is using heat, alcohol, and a really fine tip spudger. I think I spent most of my time on that first tip, so I'm going to move on to the next one and quickly go through this one. This next one is related to backlight damage. I'm sure that everyone has at least heard of backlight damage on a board or seen it themselves. Hopefully they haven't seen it too much because that becomes a costly issue. But before I kind of show our tip for avoiding it, I'm going to go over first what causes it. So basically, if you have your screen plugged into your device and your battery connected, and the device thinks that the screen is powered on, it's going, if you disconnect the screen while that's the case, that instant change in current is going to cause the fuses on the board to blow because it can't handle it. You took all the current that was going through the screen and now, bam, it's going to the board, which can blow those filters. So the number one way we found to avoid this, don't make it I think the screen is powered off or the phone is powered off. Disconnect your battery. That's the only way to know for sure. So I'm going to take the pointer to my spudger here, just go between the battery connector and the board. So right now with my battery disconnected, there is no way I could blow a backlight filter. The only exception would be if I didn't plug my screen in properly and then plug the battery in. That can also cause the same kind of scenario. But when you're opening your phone, you take off your brackets, battery should always be first. Whether it's an iPhone, a Samsung phone, another Android, or even iPad. iPad's another big one. We always recommend removing that battery screw and separating the board from the battery to avoid blowing any backlight filters. Because in some cases, in certain devices, it's not a fixable thing. We can replace backlight filters, diodes, coils, whatever components are, but if you damage the backlight to the point where it nukes the board, meaning the pad that the components are soldered to are just disintegrated, it's a lot harder to repair that. So we definitely don't want to cause those whenever possible, so just unplug your battery and that'll save you there. So continuing on with my third tip, I'm going to talk about FPC connector damage on the board. So this is basically the connectors you see here on the board. The first one is disconnecting them. I've seen a number of tools used to disconnect cables, from flathead screwdrivers to plastic butter knives. You want to use something that has a fine tip that you can see and control easily. That's again where your spudger comes in. As I mentioned earlier, this one's a little bit dull, so I'm actually not going to want to use that one. I'm going to grab this fine tipped one, get underneath there, and then gently twist. It's a twisting motion to avoid that. Again, this will help minimize the damage to the board, the components around it, as well as the FPC connector. And I would say the most common damage we see is not necessarily disconnecting, but connecting. For that, the biggest tip here I have is use your finger to connect it so you can see and feel the pressure and how it's sitting into the connector. If you use another tool, you can't really feel how much pressure is on that end, so just using your finger, you can even hear the click when you press it and feel it click, and that's what you want to go for. So that is avoiding FPC damage. That's a pretty quick one to go through. And then our fourth and final tip, again, trying to wrap this up so I don't take too much more time, and this is just about testing parts. So what I mean by that is I have two new parts here. I have a screen and I have a battery. Now, when I talk about testing parts, the reason I'm mentioning this right now is not necessarily to say, oh, don't trust your parts no matter what supplier or factory you get them from, but mainly this should be a part of everyone's repair process because it, one, prevents you from having to do the repair multiple times if there is a part issue. Two, it helps you identify if the part replacement will replace the issue the customer is having, or if it's something else causing the issue, like the logic board. And third, it helps you identify if damage is occurring during the repair. For example, on that last one, say I put this screen onto my iPhone 10 without testing it, popped it in, and then realized, oh, my panel is broken. It's hard at that point to identify for sure if that damage happened in transit to you, or if that happened because there was a screw underneath the screen or something, the frame is damaged. Anything else could have caused that damage as well. And again, it's not that we're saying we're going to question any type of damage we see. We just want to make sure everyone is accurately doing the repair. And there's, I know, a wide range of skill sets out there, so I'm not saying that anyone does or doesn't know how to do this properly, but it's important to make sure that you're testing it because, like I said, if you didn't test this, you didn't know if it was you or if it wasn't you, or if the part was, again, even good to begin with. So that's that last bullet point I mentioned. Identifying if the part's going to fix it. So say a customer came in with this phone saying, my screen stopped working. You try a new screen, completely install it, it's still not working. So if you had tested it prior to fully installing it, you would have identified, hey, it's not the screen causing the no image, it's the board. So that would help quickly resolve and diagnose the issue and save you a lot of time. And again, that first bullet point kind of ties into what I just mentioned. The goal here is to do repairs as efficiently as possible. Having to do it multiple times kind of defeats the purpose there because you're having to take the phone apart, which also increases the risk of damage. So again, not just screens, I would say batteries too. Just plug in the battery. So in this case, if I was going to test this iPhone 10 battery, I would need to make sure I plug my cable in, plug all my parts in before I install it, because again, that saves me all the time of having to take the old part out, put the new one in, and do the repair multiple times. So in this case, I would test that, make sure it's all good to go, and then continue or not continue with the repair, letting the customer know that something else is causing the issue. So I know I'm a little over my time today. Definitely didn't meet the 5-minute mark, but I hope these tips helped out. If you weren't doing them already, trust me, we've been doing repairs for a long time. I've been doing repairs for even longer than I've been at eTech, but I've picked these up and used them for years now, and they've definitely worked for me and the technicians we've trained as well. So definitely try them out if you haven't already. And then a final kind of closing comment before we go. We did have a competition or a contest on our Facebook where we asked on a post for you to submit your most damaged device and repair completed in the last week. We didn't get a whole lot of response there, so what I'm doing is making the decision to extend that contest until our next Facebook Live session, just because we want some more time to see what you guys have seen out there. I know I hear repair stories every day. We get people calling in, so I'd like to see some of that on our social too. So definitely find that post and make a comment on there with an image and just let us know, hey, how it came in and what you did to fix it. We'd definitely love to see what you guys have. But that's it for today's stream. Again, thanks guys for stopping in. We look forward to seeing everyone in the next stream, and everyone have a great rest of your weekend.